Good morning, Olive Branch family, and welcome to our online service. My name is Jeremiah, and I'm your host this morning for the next couple of seconds. We're so glad that you're able to join us. We want you to remember, if you're in the GTA area, come and join us in person. We meet every Sundays at 10 a.m., and especially with the Christmas season on its way, it is great to come together and join in worship and listening to the Word, as well as building community together. So we want to encourage you to come and join us. But Pastor Ken is continuing on his series, Under the Surface, where he's going to be talking about the end of the world. And it's a message that you don't want to miss out. So let's worship God. Let's praise Him. Let's hear the message. Have an amazing Sunday. God bless.
Good to see you. Good to have you here. And today we are going to be giving the final talk in this whole series, Under the Surface, what Christians believe and why it matters. And so we've talked about lots of different things, what we believe about God, what we believe about, the Holy Spirit, what we believe about following Jesus, what we believe about all these different things. And it matters because following Jesus matters, and there are certain truths that is all based on, of course. Last week we talked about salvation. Jeremiah talked about what we believe about salvation. But today I want to talk about what we believe about the end of the world, which fits because it's actually the end of this series. Now, just to kind of go back, how many of you were around when Y2K happened? Back in 2000, there was, for the whole year before, there was all this stuff, all this uncertainty, fear, and so on, that when our computers changed over because they had been set for the 18th or the 20th century, that when they turned over into the 21st century, all of a sudden it was going to change everything. And, everything was going to shut down. The governments were going to shut down. The whole power grid could possibly shut down. Computers were going to shut down, So it was just all this stuff. What's going to happen? And people were scared. It's over now, but people were scared back then, and they're thinking, oh no, some people actually moved off the grid so that they didn't have to worry about power, electric power, and so on. People stored dried food in their basements and stored water and so on. So it was a time when everybody was afraid, bought generators, and maybe you were one of those you still have dried food stored in your basement. I don't know. But I just need to be upfront with you and say, of course, the biggest non-event in history was when the whole thing flipped to 2000, January 1st, 2000, and nothing happened, okay? And everybody thought, oh man, people spent money. And I just need to tell you, I'm kind of a skeptic at heart. I heard all the stuff. I did some research on it, and I was scared for at least an hour about the whole thing, and I filled, 3 pop bottles full of water and put them up in the bathroom, and that's kind of about all the preparation that I had. Good thing it didn't happen, right? But, I'm kind of a skeptic, really. I don't believe in the Ronco Vengematic. I don't believe in the Peloton bicycle. I think people were going to buy them and sell them. I don't believe in Santa Claus, I don't believe in the conspiracy theories around JFK's assassination or around 9/11 or, about Area 51 or anything like that. And I also don't believe that the Ark of the Covenant is being stored in a cave in the Middle East. I don't believe, that in Walmarts all around the world, they're stocking up, stones to rebuild the temple. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that Russia is raising, millions of horses for the Battle of Armageddon. I don't believe any of that. But I do believe that Jesus Christ is coming back. Now, I'm not a prophecy buff. I just need to admit that right up front, But I have read the Bible several times, and I've read books on prophecy and so on. And I believe that every prophecy that has ever been given about the end times is going to be fulfilled. I don't have a shadow of a doubt about that. What I do have some thoughts about is the fact that, we aren't told exactly what's going to happen, and I think to speculate is always dangerous. Now, this event called the second coming of Christ, Jesus taught this from the very beginning, and he didn't just throw out a few phrases here and there. He gave whole messages on this. So this is not something that's up for speculation as to whether or not he taught it. We've called it the blessed hope. Believers in Jesus have called, this is our hope. This is for what's going to happen. Other people have called it pie in the sky. And Peter writes about that. He says, most importantly, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come, mocking the truth and following their own desires. And they will say, what happened to the promise that Jesus is coming again? For before the times of our ancestors, everything has remained the same since the world was first created. Now, here's the issue, I think, and that's sometimes we're believers in the fact that Jesus is going to come again, but in terms of it actually getting into our daily lives, we might fit in the scoffer category. So I just want to ask you, where are you at? Are you a believer? Or when it comes down to the daily life, are you a scoffer? Because I think it's important. Jesus' most common warning in every talk he gave on this was, don't fall asleep. Don't just let this day come without thinking about it. Now, the reason I've never seriously questioned whether Jesus is coming again is because he's got a perfect credibility rating. And this is kind of the way the metrics work on this, okay? Credibility is truth-telling plus time. Prophets gave 48 specific prophecies about Jesus coming, and they were 100% fulfilled. And if you look into the odds of that happening, they can't just happen like that. Jesus prophesied exactly what was going to happen. He was going to be betrayed, he was going to be mocked, he was going to get tortured, and he was going to die, and he was going to rise again on the third day. 100% fulfilled. There's just no way that anybody could ever pull that off. Jesus, when he was asked a question about, what was going to happen, he mentioned that the temple was going to be torn down. When he gave his prophecy about that, he told about exactly what was going to happen, and it happened in 70 AD, 100% fulfilled. So Jesus has a pretty good record on that, and I'm tempted to follow that in terms of what I'm going to believe about him. Now, Jesus and the writers about second coming, okay, say a lot of things, and I need to kind of give a disclaimer here, okay? I've read a bunch of this, as I mentioned. I've read a whole bunch of things, and there are people who are good people who love Jesus, who believe the Bible, who differ on a lot of the different things about this. And my thought is, I think if God had wanted us to be crystal clear on how this whole was going to happen, I think he probably would have told us. So let me just kind of give you some of the elements of what's going on and what people have different thoughts about. The first one is whether or not Israel is going to be actually a part of the end times, or whether the church, has kind of absorbed all of those things about Israel. I think it's going to be personally, because, it says that Jesus was going to take the throne of his father David and his ancestor David, and he was going to be on that forever. Another one is what's called the rapture. There's one passage in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 where Paul talks about the fact that, we aren't going to get to be with Jesus before the people who've died. It's intended to be a source of comfort, but people differ on whether or not the rapture is going to happen and when it's going to happen. Like, there are people who believe it's going to happen before the tribulation, in the middle of the tribulation, or after the tribulation. So there's that. And then there's the Great Tribulation. What is that? Was that fulfilled, when Jerusalem was attacked and surrounded and so on? Like, certainly there's going to be the judgment at the end times, but what's being talked about there? The other thing is about the Antichrist, or the lawless one. So, John says, well, the spirit of Antichrist is already in the world, but Paul talks about this, and he says there is a lawless one, because people were concerned about whether or not Jesus had come, and he said, I told you before that this lawless one has to be identified before that happens. So we know that Jesus is going to return. There's no question about that, but there are questions about the judgments and what those are going to be, and you probably have heard, about the 4 horses of the apocalypse and so on, and then the millennium. In the end of the book of Revelation, Revelation 20, it says that there's going to be a 1,000-year reign of Christ. And so again, there's, premillennialists, people believe that Jesus is going to come before the millennium. Postmillennialists, that, everything's going to get better and better, and then Jesus is going to come back. Or, there's people who don't believe in it. Corrie ten Boom, I remember hearing her say, I'm a millennialist. He says, I think it's all going to pan out in the end. But so there's all these different things that go on. Now, what Jesus focused on, was the surprising nature of his coming. That there would be no mistaking it. That, it would be like, the lightning striking. That you'd be able to see it from the east to the west. And it was going to happen very quickly. And he just basically said, be careful, and watch. Now, Paul writes this, for the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a commanding shout, with the voice of the archangel, that's coming, with the trumpet call of God. First, and this is where we get into the rapture, okay? The believers who have died and rise, and first the believers who have died will rise from their graves, and then together with them, we who are still alive and remain on the earth will be caught up in the clouds to meet the air. Now, we know for certain that this is going to happen, because, this is inspired of God, and it says, and then we will be with the Lord forever. So encourage one another with these words. Now, this wasn't intended, I don't think, to create, a new doctrine about it, but it's basically saying, be encouraged, The people who have died are going to come back with Jesus, and we're going to be caught up with them, and there's going to be a reunion there. So there's some debate over this in terms of, whether or not this is going to happen. Prophecy experts also tend to focus on the horrible judgments that are mentioned in the book of Revelation. Now, what appears to happen here is that it talks about, that something is going to get taken out of the way, and then evil, the lawless one, is going to come, and incredible evil is going to follow. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that happens at that particular juncture. Now, here's the thing I always run into, and that we like to say, okay, well, this is going to happen, so I want to be prepared for this. Don't want to be surprised by this. And yet, God does not give us clarity. Now, if he wanted to give us clarity, he gave us clarity on lots of things, but, there are some things where he decides he's going to keep the secret for his own reasons, and he doesn't tell us exactly what's going to happen. But we do know that Jesus Christ is going to come back, and he is going to reign over everything. What is important to understand is that a lot of people, prophecy experts, let me put it this way, missed it the first time. And they were convinced that with all the prophecies of the Old Testament, that Jesus was going to be kind of this Rambo-like leader, and he was going to come. The Messiah was going to come, and he was going to kill all the enemies. He's going to save them from Rome, and then he was going to sit there in Israel and reign forever. Well, that's not what happened, and people who were the experts missed it. So that when Jesus came, they didn't even believe that he was the Messiah. And so the teachings on Jesus' second coming are intended to make clear, first of all, that God is in charge of history. Like the end is going to come when he says it's going to come, so that's really important. The second thing is that evil has an end date on it. Like it's going to end because Jesus Christ is going to come back, and he's going to end all evil, and he's going to make all things new. It's pretty clear, whenever Jesus was questioned about this, it seems like he's answering one of three questions. He's answering, they asked him, when's the temple going to be taken down? So he talked about that, When is Jerusalem going to fall? He talked about that, What's going to happen to us? And he talked about that, And then they said, well, tell us what the signs of the end are going to be like. And Jesus was not clear. Like he didn't detail it. He didn't say, 1, this is going to happen. 2, this is going to happen. 3, 64, this is good. He didn't go down through all the details. If he had wanted to be clear, if God had wanted to make this crystal clear so nobody could miss it, he could have done that, But he didn't. Now, in an earlier letter, John says that there's going to be a spirit of Antichrist, and it says that he's already loose in the world. I talked to you about that. And there's going to come a day when the lawless one is going to get revealed. And of course, this is where speculation goes wild, in terms of the mark of the beast and in terms of what's going to happen and not being able to buy food and so on. And I just don't think that the Bible is that clear on this. We know that it's going to happen. We know that this person is going to come, but exactly what it's going to look like and how to identify him, I think that we have to be careful. And the whole thing basically comes around the whole part of what we call the tribulation. And so people were thinking, well, am I going to have to go through that? I'm a believer in God. Why would I have to go through that? And then there are people who would say, well, why shouldn't you go through it? People have already gone through it. And then there are people who would basically say, we're going through it right now. What are you talking about, the Great Tribulation? We're in the Great Tribulation. And so there's lots of different things about this. But I think you just need to understand that whatever happens, God is either going to take us out of it or he's going to give us strength to make it through it. And that's exactly what happens when he works with believers. Now, some people believe that, that when it comes to the rapture, remember it talks about being caught up to be with the Lord in the air. Well, people think, the Spirit of God is obviously going to be taken out of this world because he lives in believers. And so this is what Paul writes, for this lawlessness is already at work secretly, and it will remain a secret until the one who is holding it back steps out of the way. And there's this sense that there's going to be kind of this dam that breaks, and everything's going to kind of cut loose. There seems to be a sense from what Jesus said that people are going to be aware. They're going to be fearful, and they're going to be worried about what's happening. We've been aware, I think, of the fact that, that there's stuff going on, and it just can't keep going on the way it has. We're going to be talking about that in my next series, starting actually next week, and it's going to be basically talking about the fact it's late, we better pay attention to what's going on. But Jesus wrote this, and think about this in terms of just some of the stuff that's going on with global warming and the fear of climate change and everything like that. He says this, and there will be strange signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And here on earth, the nations will be in turmoil, perplexed by the roaring seas and the strange tides. People will be terrified by what they see coming upon the earth. For the powers in the heavens will be shaken, and then everyone will see the Son of Man coming on a cloud with power and great glory. So when all these things begin to happen, he says this, stand up and look up, for your salvation is near. Historians tell us that around the time when Jesus came the first time, there were some of these expectations going on in the world, that this great leader was going to come and that he was going to change everything and so on. And they applied that, most of them did anyways, to Caesar Augustus. The problem is Caesar Augustus came and he died and his era was over. Jesus Christ, I think, was the one that people were thinking about. And some of that same stuff is going on today. There seems to be a sense, ever since 2000, that things are changing, that something's going to happen. And you see this in the movies, that have came out around, 2000, Independence Day, Armageddon. There's all these TV shows that are on right now about, aliens and about, the paranormal and things like that. People sense that something's going on, and I think we do too. And, of course, when things happen like they have happened most recently where Israel gets attacked, then it's like our antenna goes up and says, oh, man, Armageddon is coming. Well, we don't know that because they've been attacked before, but there just have been a number of different things, okay? But the world is going to get judged. And John writes this in the book of Revelation. He says, and I saw a great white throne and the one sitting on it, and earth and sky fled from his presence, but they found no place to hide. I saw the dead, both great and small, standing before God's throne. And the books were opened, including the book of life. And the dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up its dead, and death and grave gave up their dead. And all were judged according to their deeds. So there is a judge. It's good to know. What I need to be careful is my understanding. It's not me. There is a judge, and it's not me. Now, it's very easy to get cynical about the injustice in the world. We see it going on, and we watch people do stuff, and we think, they're going to get away with it. Like they murdered somebody, they're going to get away with it. They killed children, they get away with it. They did this mass butchering, and they're not going to be accountable. And John is writing here, you have to understand, he's writing to people who are in the middle of horrible, horrible times. Like they watch their kids get draped with animal skins and sent out into the arena to get torn apart for the entertainment of all the people sitting up in the grandstands. I mean, they were suffering. It wasn't just like they got their homes looted and they couldn't get jobs. Like some people were experiencing horrible torture. They lost people that they loved. And John is saying, this is going to get judged. This is going to get judged. And it's a good thing that God is the judge. Because I think about it, so how would I judge John Newton? I mean, he was involved in the whole slave trade thing. Like, he sold whole families into slavery, where their whole family was going to be there for hundreds of years, okay? And yet he gets saved, gives his heart to Jesus, and he writes a song called Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound has saved a wretch like me. What's God going to do with, David Berkowitz, who killed all these people, and now he's given his life to Jesus. What's he going to do with Judas, who had a pretty good run with Jesus and then betrayed him? So there are all these questions, and there is a judge who's basically going to deal with it and face it down, okay? But we know this about evil. It's going down. The whole stinking system of evil and injustice is going down, and God, through Jesus, is going to set it right. And we're told in the end, there are really only two destinies. There are people who love Jesus, the one who gave them life, the one who went to a cross for them, and they follow him. And to follow him is to find life forever. We don't deserve it, but we find life forever. God has been working and speaking to people who are far away from him, and they keep putting their hands in his faces. They keep saying, no, I'm not going to believe. I don't believe in you, and so on. And and so people eventually will get what they want, which is they will get distance from God. Jesus called that hell. Now, there are a variety of ways to understand all these prophecies, okay? But the basics are there. The signs are there to look for. At some point, Jesus' followers are going to get caught up to meet him in the air, okay? We're told that. There's going to be an awful time of darkness on this planet. Sin is going to get judged, and I personally don't want to be in the middle of that, but I know that God will watch over me. There's going to be a final battle. It's very clear in all the prophecies. There's going to be a final battle where, people who align themselves with the devil and with powers of evil and darkness are going to line up against God and say, go ahead, let's have it out here. And it's not even really going to be a battle because they'll just be gone. We know that everything that we've had questions about is going to get clarified. And here's what I want to be careful of, and what I'm trying to be careful of today. I don't want to, proclaim things of certainty where we don't have certainty about it. Like there are good people on either side who disagree. But there will come a time when every question is going to get answered. And we know this, and you need to know this. Suffering and evil and sadness and brokenness and all the stuff goes with it is going to be gone forever. You know why I know that? It's because the most brilliant, honest, powerful person who ever lived, who split history in half, said, it's going to happen. I'm going to come back. Now, my reason for not being dogmatic about the specifics is, you know what I know? I know less than I did 30 years ago. Like, I knew a lot 30 years ago that I no longer know. And there are people who are sincerely wrong, They believe it with all their hearts, but they're sincerely wrong. And people were sincerely wrong about the first time Jesus, showed up here. And so every prophecy is going to be fulfilled. That's what Jesus did the first time. And we just need to understand that's going to happen the second time too. I want to talk about just some of the effects of prophecy. Prophecy is powerful stuff. And with anything powerful, you have to be careful with it. Water is a powerful force, but when it gets into the wrong places in your basement or in your home or in your car, it can do a lot of damage. Same thing with fire. Fire is an amazingly powerful gift, but you get it in the wrong places and you use it improperly, and there can be a lot of damage. Prophecy is powerful because of the fact that sometimes the people who use it to their own benefit. Okay? And I've seen this happen. It's been used to create cults, Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a whole bunch of them out there that have been created because of this. Some people have used it to get rich, to make themselves rich, But the first misuse, and maybe the most prevalent one, that I think we have to be careful of is the inquiring mind wants to know. And I'm telling you, we can spend a lot of time drilling down into all the details, speculating about what's going to happen, and it really doesn't change the end result, and it really doesn't help us to be ready and help us to move forward with what Jesus is coming to actually accomplish. When Jesus was asked about it, what did he say? He said, I don't know. When are you going to come back? I don't know. Angels don't know. Only the Father knows. And my understanding is, don't speculate about it, because you don't have to speculate about it. Years ago, a prophecy professor by the name of Edward Wissenant wrote a book called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Happen in 1988. Now, did the rapture happen in 1988? No. So he wrote another book, I missed it. It's going to be 1989. Did the rapture happen in 1989? No. And what happens is when people do stuff like this, it creates scoffers. There are people who believed him, and there are people who, get to the point where they sell everything, and they're all ready to go, and then they find out that the person didn't know what they were talking about. You can look at everything, and I'm telling you, you can get this thing narrowed down and get on a path that doesn't help anybody and certainly doesn't help you. Some evangelists and prophecy buffs have used it to kind of create guilt. You may have experienced this like I did. I've heard some past preachers say, if Jesus were to come back, and catch you in a theater, or if he were to catch you playing cards, or catch you, fishing on Sunday, And so it was like the point was almost like Jesus was he was the spy in the sky, he was waiting until you're doing something bad, and he comes back and says, I gotcha, caught you doing something wrong. Well, that totally misses the point. The point is that Jesus is coming back to end the evil, not catch us in the middle of doing it, okay? And then there's this whole thing of getting left behind. I remember coming home from school, walking around the house, Mom, Dad, and I have this feeling of terror, Jesus came and I got left behind because it wasn't good enough. The truth is that Jesus is coming back, okay? And some people will be quite surprised. Jesus said, basically, make sure that you aren't one of them. Live as a transformed person. Have a transforming effect on your world. Be a part of Jesus making things new. Remember, prophecy, and this is what we always have to remember, has a context. In Jesus' case, when he gave, the prophecies that he did and the messages he did, it's based on 3 questions, like, when is the temple going to get torn apart? What about us? What's going to happen to us? And what are the signs of your coming? So he's answering 3 questions. When book of John, is being written to people who are under horrible persecution. And he was basically telling them, Jesus is going to come back. Evil does not win. God wins. And he's going to give you strength to get through this. Let's talk about the huge encouragement that it offers, because sometimes people, think about this and it doesn't bring them encouragement, and it should. Sometimes people, followers of Jesus, get cynical about what has been called pie in the sky and the by and by, And so, we go through something like COVID, and it scares us to death, and we're not sure of things and wonder what's going to happen and so on, and we get cynical, And so we think, Jesus is coming back. Oh, cool. What's for supper? Because we totally lose perspective on what's going on. So if you're a cynic, I don't imagine many of you are, but if you're a cynic, then what is your alternative to this hope? Like, who's going to set things right? There's all kinds of injustice that goes on every single day in this world. Horrible things happen to people. Who's going to set it right? Is it going to be set right? Who's going to make things perfect? Who's going to change your heart? Who's going to give you strength to make it through? See, Jesus coming back, he's a person who knows everything. He's perfect in all his ways, and he's going to give grace to people who don't deserve it, like me, like you. And then there will be some people who won't choose him. So you just have to be careful not to get cynical. The people who followed Jesus first told everyone about the good news, but then they got crushed between the temple and Rome, and they went through horrible stuff. Their comfort was knowing Jesus is going to come back, and he's going to set things right. Even if I don't live to see it, even if my kids don't live to see it, even if my great grandkids don't live to see it, it's going to happen. And I'll bet there are some of you who are going through really difficult times right now. And you've lost hope. And you don't need, some new prophecy tidbit, about what may happen. What you need is hope. You need the certainty that God is watching over you. Maybe you've lost somebody incredibly important in your life, and you're not sure if you're going to see them again. Maybe, you're worried about your money because things are heading south, and you're wondering about whether or not, the promise is true that God is going to provide for you. You need some certainty, and you need hope that there's going to be a better ending than what it looks like right now. What you need to know is, maybe your next chapter hasn't been written yet, and you need to be careful not to, obsess over that and worry over that. But the final chapter of this world has been written. And Jesus is going to come back, and he's going to set things right, and it's going to be decisive. Evil's going to be exposed for what it really is. There's something else that we need to see, and that is that there are a lot of people who make money off of fear. There are. People make money off of fear. When I was young, during the Cold War, it was, that there's going to be this nuclear holocaust. But the comfort is, none of that's going to happen unless Jesus says it can or will. Because he controls all of history. And he basically said, that, things are going to kind of continue on the way they always have, like they were before Noah entered the ark. People are going to be eating and drinking and, getting married and stuff like this. And then the end's going to come, and it's going to surprise everybody. So, here's one of the thoughts, Bad stuff happens, and there's a lot of bad stuff that prophecy talks about. And there's dread, and there's fear, and sometimes anger and uncertainty that surrounds it. But everything is going to be new. This is where we want to live, in peace and hope and love and certainty. And what Jesus promises, this can happen to us before the end comes, like in the middle of sometimes terrible times. So with Christians, sometimes we believe this, but we live here, kind of in the midst of all the bad stuff, and we live with dread and fear and uncertainty, and we just get obsessed with the stuff that's bad. The danger, as I see it, when it comes to some of the things with the end times, is dogmatism. basically saying, well, this is what I believe. I mean, this is what the Bible teaches, that this is going to happen, that we're going to get raptured, and then the tribulation is going to come, and then there's going to be the millennium, and they have it all nailed down. I don't think, it's not that nailed down. And the problem with dogmatism, and this is what happens, is that Christians start fighting and they get divided. Jesus' last prayer was, may they be one, Father, like we're one. What would he think of people who are fighting over when he's going to come again? We fight over what God has left unclear. We don't know. We don't know. I'll tell you what we do know, and this is the clearest message that Jesus gave about his second coming. I've got this. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to obsess over the details. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to nail down all the edges and figure out when it's all going to happen. I've got this. And there's a point where we have to trust him, that he has it, that it's very clear about what's going to happen. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. It's going to surprise everybody, even the prophecy buffs, but it will happen. Now, whatever you're facing, you need to know that God is there. And the truth that you have to see in all these passages is you can be afraid. Yes, you can be afraid, and you can go and you can try to hide, hide in some tree, and peer out of the tree, and look around. Jesus said, get on with it. Get on. There's so much work to be done. There's so many things that you can do to make a difference. There's so many ways that you can impact the people around you. And then the end will come. Every prophecy in the scriptures has a reminder, and it basically says, live for what counts. Man, live for what counts. Don't fritter away your life doing stuff. Don't get seduced by fear and by money and by power and recklessness. Hold things lightly. Peter writes this, but you must not forget this one thing, dear friends. A day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. The Lord isn't really being slow about his promise, as some people think. No, he's being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. But the day of the Lord will come unexpectedly as a thief. And then the heavens will pass away with a terrible noise, and the very elements themselves will all disappear in fire, and the earth and everything on it will be found to deserve judgment. Since everything around us is going to be destroyed like this, what holy and godly lives should live? You could put it like this. We have all this stuff around us that we like, My stuff, it's nice, but maybe we got to put a tag on it that says it's nice, but it's flammable. I can't live for it. It's great to have. It's got, some of these things are God's gift, but how should we live? And you need to hold these things lightly as you live. This is an amazing insight, because God is not trying to say gotcha, It says, Jesus put it like this. He talks about how that everybody's going to get a chance. He says, and the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that all the nations will hear it, and then the end will come. Jesus basically taught that God is patient, and that's what Peter emphasized here. He's patient. He doesn't want anybody lost. That's what Jesus said the first time. God sent his son so that no one would perish. And we need to be a part of helping people to understand that hope is not found in their money. Hope isn't found in their career. Hope is not found in, how good of a job you get or how proud you make your parents or success or anything like that. Because there's going to come a time when all of that stuff, it's going to be nice, but it's going to be worthless because of what goes on. Again, Jesus uses one word in every single context when he talks about coming again. It's watch. Watch. Watch what's going on. Keep your eyes on the ball. Keep your eyes on the highway. It's like he knows that we get distracted, oh, look, there's a bird. We totally forget where we are. But followers of Jesus wouldn't do that. They wouldn't get distracted, would they? Well, maybe they would. See, there's a current to the stream of the world system, and we all know that it all goes downstream. It all goes downstream. Jesus called this drift, he called it the Broadway that leads to destruction. Jesus said, this is like building your house on sand, and when the storm comes, it's all going to be gone. He says, use your life and use your resources in a way that doesn't just look at this life, but looks ahead into eternity, into what's going to be happening there. Help advance the redemption of what God does. Whatever you do, don't try to build a little kingdom down here for yourself. Engage in what God is building. Specifically, Jesus said, watch out. Don't let your hearts be dulled by carousing and drunkenness and by the worries of this life. Don't let that day catch you unaware like a trap. For that day will come upon everyone living on the earth. Keep alert at all times and pray that you might be strong enough to escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. He said, be careful, because your heart can be lured away. He talks about carousing. I don't know if you've ever seen a carousel, but it's like things going round and around and around, and it's fake, Everybody's riding on a horse or something like that. But, you ride around and around and around, and when the ride's over, you get off. You haven't gone anywhere. Don't spend it carousing. Drunkenness, when you're drunk, you're under the influence of something that is, making your perspective off. Nobody wants to fly on a plane where the pilot is drunk because you know that you're going to probably go into the side of a mountain. But I think the last one is what we fight with the most. It's being weighed down by the worries of life. This past year, I've been in 2 accidents, wrecked 2 cars, totaled 2 cars, and let's see what else has happened. Our dog is sick and looks like she's dying. We've got, had all kinds of other issues, and then our water pump went. I mean, it's just like one thing after another. And it is so easy to let these things totally preoccupy your life and judge what's going on in your own life and in the world based on the stuff that you're worried about, the stuff that you're thinking about. Don't forget to watch. Don't forget to have hope. Hope is what helps us make it through. That's why Jesus said, I'm going to come back. You can count on it. I told you a few weeks ago, I think, about my dad's catastrophic service on this little aircraft carrier off the shores of Leyte Gulf, Philippines, in this massive battle. So they'd had like 18-inch shells shot at them from this massive battleship, and they'd seen these, the splashes from these things alone would go up like 600 feet in the air, probably higher than that. And so they made it through that, and I think, boy, we made it through that one. So not too long after that, this kamikaze plane went through the deck of his ship. And of course, as I told you, the thing blew up and went down into the hangars where they were loading planes with fuel and torpedoes and all this stuff. Well, so they went down. My dad came up topside. There's this like 15-inch, 15-foot hole in the deck. And he's thinking, okay, we can make it through this. Well, then all this stuff went off, blew up, and then the captain called abandoned ship. So one of his friends, one of the guys he knew, said, I've got $2,000 down in my locker. I've got to go down and get it. Now, you have to understand, $2,000 back then could buy you a house, okay? 1944. All his friends are saying, don't go down. But he decided, it was too important to leave behind. So he went down, and he never got off the ship. What happened is that he somehow underestimated the tragedy of what was going on and the power of what was going to happen. And he overestimated the amount of time that he had. And sometimes when that happens, you make dumb decisions. You don't want to invest your soul for $2,000. You don't want to invest your soul and your life for $200,000 or $2 million. You want to make sure that you keep important what is most important in life. And we're not going to see that till the end. Jesus Christ, person who changed history, most important person who's ever lived, one who split history into 2 big pieces, said he's going to come back. And he will. He will. And I want to encourage you to live with the certainty and with the hope and the power of what that means for everything that we know, because he's going to make all things new. Let's pray. I want to thank you, God, for your promise. You haven't just left us here on this planet while you went off to adjust the twinkle on star someplace. You showed up here. You paid for our sin on a cross. And then you said, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back for you. I'm going to come back for you, I promise. And you will. Help us to not forget that. Help us to have the perspective on our lives, knowing what matters and what doesn't matter. Help us to understand the truth and the power of what you've told us you're going to do. Amen. And so may the certainty guide your steps. May the hope of Jesus coming back fill your heart and give you strength and help you with whatever you face. Amen.
When that shoebox is open, they're overjoyed.
You can see them shouting, jumping.
Look at how much they are excited. This is the first time those children are receiving the shoe boxes. They are so happy.
Every box is important because every box is an opportunity to tell a child about God's love, about His Son, Jesus Christ.
If you get the heart of the child, you will reach the heart of the parents, you will reach the heart of the family, and then you will touch the community. That gift box is the beginning into their hearts.
Isn't it incredible how these gifts touch the lives of these children? Every year we see tens of thousands of children discipled. And we couldn't do this without you, so thank you for packing the boxes. Thank you for praying for these children around the world. God bless you, and keep packing those boxes.